Не можно снимать? Снимать не можно? Да, можно или не можно? We can't film the market, they've said. Блин, приезжали из Англии, посмотреть это и снимать. We can't film.
According to several Western media outlets, the attack on the Russian oil industry has troubled the United States, and its government has asked Ukraine to stop these attacks. But Ukraine will likely continue to conduct these asymmetric strikes within the limits of its capacity
To hang out.
Where?
You just said, like, at the Smoothie King, they don't have a place to hang out. Like, what do you want to hang out there for? Just go home.
No, listen. I don't attack the fucking mukiak that opens my computer and makes believe I'm Johnny Intellectual. Never.
Well, before they were destroyed, could have been used to home people. But no, instead, no investment. Austerity Britain. Just let them get destroyed.
lands continued in the following decades, when in 872, Guigon, the last in the traditional line of kings of Cisalpine, drowned, leaving no heir. In prior years, Rodri had secured a marriage to Guigon's sister, Angaret, stone shores of the Great Orme. After this, Hugh Le Gros de Vroche, Earl of Chester, became Gwyneth's new foreign overlord. That same year, the fire of rebellion erupted all across the land of the Cymry. In southern Wales, all the way back up to the Isle of Anglesey. In this, the Normans were aided by an influential Welsh noble, Owain ap Edwin. The rebel kings hired a fleet of Irish Vikings to push back against the two Hughs. However, the Normans simply bribed these Vikings for the third time. However, in one of medieval history's more notable Deus Ex Machinas, Magnus Baranek, King of Norway, happened to be sailing through the Irish Sea with his fleet at the time. For whatever reason, he clashed with the Norman. Ferdinand of Gwynedd passed away at the age of 82, and would be remembered for his leading role in Wales's largely successful resistance against the first wave of Norman colonization. Griffith would be succeeded by his son, Owain ap Griffith. Because of this, Owain was able to raze Basingstoke Castle to the ground and recapture the whole of Rhuddlan. The final years of Owain Gwyneth's life were spent quarrelling with the aforementioned Thomas Becket over the dependence of Welsh, becoming the sole ruler of Gwynedd. During the first half of his undisputed reign, the second great Llewellyn transformed Gwynedd from a disgraced rump state back into a dauntless spearhead of native Welsh resistance. In November of that year, King Edward launched a massive invasion of Wales. This time, there were no civil wars or religious schisms, which would save Cymru from feeling the full might of the English army. Edward himself was annexing England if he only gave up his claim to Wales. Llewellyn's reply was pithy. The prince is no way bound to forgo his heritage and that of his forebears from the time of Brutus, and accept lands in England, where language, manners, law. Llewellyn's place was in Wales, where his ancestors had ruled since the time of the Caesars. Ultimately, these impassioned words would become the final eulogy of a martyr. For at the Battle of Orewyn Bridge on the 11th of December, morale of the rebels collapsed, and Edward overran the whole of Wales. Gwynedd was annexed, and all symbols of its statehood were erased, with all of its royal insignia, relics and regalia removed. For nearly 1,000 years, stories of mighty kings and dauntless heroes and their military triumphs over the ancestors of the English nation. As one might expect, Wales in the 14th century was a country exceptionally prone to rebellion. Major importance of ensuring that the history, identity and language of beautiful Cymru, the land of Britain's most senior peoples, survives for countless generations more to come. In the end, the renegade Prince of Wales's war children were educated exclusively in English, and in many cases were subject to corporal punishment or public humiliation if caught speaking Welsh. By the year 1911, Welsh was no longer the majority language of Wales, and was
remaining marshals of the Soviet Union. All 11 deputy ministers of defense, 75 of the 80 members of the military Soviet, all the commanders of the military districts, 13 of
on a refugee camp and the larger invasion. Is this what people were expecting?
You know, Israel is a country that has been in perpetual mourning seemingly for the past 4 weeks. First, well, we know that one Israeli soldier was indeed rescued 2 nights ago. That was, of course, cause for great celebration in Israel. The Prime Minister has related to those concerns, saying that...
But I need to put this on something to make sure it has thrust. And I think I'm going to start with the bow.
Trying to sell the airplane, he was trying to convince me to buy it, and I just didn't have need for a DC-3 or the ability to take care of it. So ultimately he sold it here to Basler Turbo Conversions and called me and asked me to fly it here with him. So we flew the airplane.
Than the BRDM. The Guardian ASB tracks a historic period of change in quasi-mechanized infantry doctrine, where the military went from only thinking of armored vehicles as heavy brigade combat teams for armored units
to 13 dreadnought-type battleships against the British Royal Navy's 21. The German types, however, were vast improvements. They had much larger.
I believe those canals are like just in the middle of like the city.
Every 10 days. So it's just a drop in the bucket. Speaking of drops, similar technology is also being tested for underwater use by companies like JFT.
Elon Musk.
Extrêmement manøvrant.
Velkommen til Black Week i Rødovre Centrum med masser af tilbud hele ugen. Fredag holder vi åben fra 8 til 22 med masser af underholdning. Oplev pyjamasheltene, influencerne Josefine Simone og Rebecca Charlotte Dahl og med.
C'est une petite révolution. Ça nous permet de nous approcher des côtes, d'être statique en permanence. Et si toutefois une menace arrivait, de s'éloigner rapidement de la menace sans avoir à relever l'ancre, ce qui prend un certain temps.
Amhara community, who had been the ones used to running Ethiopia in all of its various forms for the past several centuries. Initially, Eritrea was the 13th region of this new Ethiopia created after 1991. But since the Tigrayans and the Eritreans had fought together as allies,
order length of joint and rail. To keep the CWR from buckling at these locations, you need something more than a small gap. Instead, expansion joints on rails, sometimes called breathers, use diagonal figures. This oblique joint allows
that his license plate was stolen from his car a few years ago. And what Dan would eventually learn from nearly all the other license plates he was running in our operation is that not only do they license plates, but they tend to steal from a similar color.